you're all good. Today I am going to make meatballs. These are so tasty, packed with flavour, but really normal ingredients. So what I have got to start off is about 1.5 pounds of round steak mince. So just ask your butcher for round steak mince. This is the best. 1.5 pounds, there's loads. You could split this into two and make meatballs with one half, shepherd's pie with the other half, burgers with the other half. So mince is a great meat to feed many for little cost. So that's going in to a bowl. Now I have some breadcrumbs and I'm just going to shake some in. I will include all the measurements and ingredients in the description below. And what else have I got? An oxo cube. These are brilliant with any mince. When you're browning mince, just crush in one of these and it'll give gorgeous colour and flavour as well. So just crush it with your hand in on top. Now the initial part of this takes a little bit of time, but I promise it is worth it. Now I have some salt and I have some pepper. Now I like my meatballs to have a really rich red tomato taste and kind of colour as well. So I have some tomato puree in here. These are brilliant for a slow cook. So make them in the morning and pop them in the oven all day. Good squirt of that. And I need an egg that I thought I had, but of course I'll always forget something. So grab an egg and crack that in. And we have to add a little bit of flavour now. So that is our garlic. So I'm going to crush 2 cloves of garlic here in on top. And I'm going to use my mincer to do that. This guy, get one of these, really, really handy because I don't want chunks of garlic in here, you know, as opposed to chopping it up and putting it in. You don't want to be eating a meatball and get a big chunk of garlic. Always take the skin out after each clove so that you're making space for the next one to come out, and use a knife to scrape that out. I'm going to add three garlic cloves to 1.5 pounds. Garlic is just so good for you, number one. So delicious, number two. We love it here. So that's 3 cloves of garlic gone in, and I have some thyme. So what I do with my thyme is I buy it in the supermarket, put it straight into a Ziploc bag and let it freeze. Once it's frozen, just ruffle up the stalks and you'll see that all the little leaves fall off, and these stems are what you're left with that you don't really need. Obviously you don't need them at all, but sometimes some of the leaves will stay on them. So you're left with what you want. And I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of thyme. You don't have to. And I also have some basil here that I had frozen. Chopped it up first and froze it. So that's going to go in. I think that's everything. Did I put salt and pepper in? I did. So I don't have gloves. I don't mind. I know some people do mind handling meat, but it doesn't really bother me. So get your hands to combine that all really, really well. If you need to add more breadcrumbs, you can if you feel it's too wet of a mixture. And mix that really well. You want to get that garlic well combined into everything. So give yourself a few minutes to do that. So I will finish this, wash my hands, and I'll be back. So that is my meat. I'm going to set that aside for 1 minute because I want to make my sauce. And that is very simply an onion, 2 cloves of garlic, a tin of tomatoes, and if you want to add a little tomato puree, you can. I have some dried oregano, and I'll pop a bay leaf in there as well. So I'm going to get my sauce simmering and then come back to my meatballs and make up the little balls, roll them in flour. We blitz the sauce, pan fry the meatballs, put the sauce on top of the meatballs. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't, especially if I can let this do its job while I'm doing this job. And that's it, into the slow cooker for the day. So my onion, I just have a white onion here. Take the skin off, and you don't need to worry too much because you will be blitzing this sauce. You don't have to if you don't have a blitzer. Just make sure you chop everything nice and fine. But if you do have a blitzer or a NutriBullet, then you can just roughly chop the onion if you can get the skin off the onion. There we go. 1 onion. Okay, so I'm just going to roughly chop this. But I'm going to chop it quite small so that it doesn't take ages to cook. So we'll chop that, and what I'm going to do is get a good knob of butter and some olive oil into a casserole dish and get that melted. Okay, so that can be melting while I'm chopping. So there is your onion. And you just want to sweat that onion down on a medium heat, not too high or it will just burn. And we don't want that. Find it handy to throw everything into a dish, and then you can just get that straight into your casserole dish. Now I have my 2 cloves of garlic. Again, the key here is a nice medium heat. Don't want your garlic to burn. That onion is strong, it's putting me crying. Hate that. So many tricks. Put a spoon in your mouth, wear goggles. I think just chop the onion as quick as you can. Okay, 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to get this onto my butter and my oil. Oh my goodness. And sweat this down. When that's done, I'll come back and we'll add the tin of tomatoes, the tomato puree and a little stock. So yeah, give me a minute and I'll be back. Okay, so my onions and garlic have softened there, lovely. And I'm going to add a tin of chopped tomatoes. If you can only get whole tomatoes, that's fine because you'll be blitzing them down. Pour that in on top. Now for flavour, dried oregano, about a tablespoon, and I'm going to pop the rest of that basil that I had frozen and chopped in there as well. I also have some wine that I have frozen, and it just kind of freezes slushy. All you need to do is get it into a Ziploc bag and pop it in the freezer. It's really, really handy for sauces and kind of stews and bolognese, and you'll always have it in your freezer. Same with the fresh herbs. So they'll go back in the freezer. So in went the wine, the basil, the oregano. I'm going to give a squirt of tomato puree just to get the right kind of colour. And we're going to get this back on the heat. I don't think I need to add any water or stock, and just let it simmer and let the flavours develop. A little salt and pepper. You have a little sugar. Put a tablespoon or teaspoon even, just a teaspoon, a little sugar to kind of cut through that acidity. I will do that when I bring it back over to the heat. So that's the sauce done. If it dries out too much, add a little water, maybe a little bit of water in the tin. And just let it really simmer nice and low. And in the meantime, we're going to get these guys rolled into balls and browned off. So just set this on your hob, nice and low, and I'll be back. Great, so that's the sauce done. That is like all that's in a jar sauce that has shelf life of a very long time. It just freaks me out how these sauces can last 10 years. What's in them? I'm putting some flour into just a bowl. Regular flour, plain, self-raising, it doesn't matter. I'm going to season that with a little salt and pepper. This is not essential. So the whole idea is the sauce is simmering there, and if you just leave it nice and low to do its magic, you'll get all the lovely flavours released in there. I also popped a bay leaf in there. I will remove that before I blitz it, and it's not essential, but if you can get your hands on some bay leaves, they are very delicious. Okay, flour, plate, meat. Now I personally like to make small little meatballs, like a ping pong ball size, even smaller if you want, or you can make big ones. So roll it and then into your flour and onto your plate. And just keep going, take your time. It's kind of the same mixture as meatloaf, same idea, except we're making meatballs, but the mince is exactly the same. So that's how I suppose meatloaf would have been made in a loaf tin. You would put that into a loaf tin, cover it and let it cook away, and then slice it. It was a big thing, I suppose, in the 80s was meatloaf. but it's exactly the same idea and ingredients. So just take your time, roll them well in flour. I'll keep doing this and I'll come back. Okay, I have a frying pan with some butter and olive oil, and I have all of my meatballs rolled in flour. You don't have to roll them in flour, but it just helps thicken the sauce. So I'm going to add my meatballs to the pan and brown them all over. Pop it back on the heat, brown them all over, and we're going to get the sauce blitzed. So I'll be back to do that. Okay, they are browned off. Just make sure they're nice and brown all over. So tasty. And there's loads there. I mean, you can have this with mash. We have it with mashed and peas. You can have it with pasta, any type. It's so good. Leftovers sliced in like a sub baguette with cheese melted on top and lots of lettuce. So this is a really great dish to have for lots of different things, and you can also freeze it in portions. So that's the meatballs done, and here is my sauce. So I'm going to bring that over. We have our blitzer and a jug. We're going to blitz it up. Okay, so this is actually no easy way to do this. I'm sure there is, but I can't put my blitzer into this because it's too shallow and I could scald myself with the blitzer. So it was a little bit of spillage, but that's okay. So I have 700 ml there. Keep this, just make sure you have everything out. And as I said, you absolutely don't need to blitz the sauce, but it just gives that lovely sauce bolognese kind of finish. Remove the bay leaf. Don't forget before you blitz. If you blitz it, it's fine. You're not even going to notice. So many people, including myself, make that mistake. So we're just going to blitz this until it's really smooth, like tomato soup. And if you want to add more liquid, if it's too thick, you can. But make sure you blitz it for a good 2 minutes until it's really, really smooth. I'm going to do that, and I'll be back. So, just so you know, you also now know how to make a basic tomato-based sauce for pasta. Again, add it to mince, add it to chicken. That's how you do it. It's that easy. If you want to get in some veg, you can add in some chopped celery and carrots with the onions and the garlic. But this is the most delicious sauce to have with so many different dishes. So well done. You've just learned how to make a second dish and actually a third, because guess what? Add a little bit more liquid to this, and if you want to add a little bit of cream, you've got yourself some delicious tomato soup. So you can see all the different things you can make from this very simple sauce. As I said, add in some chopped carrots, celery if you want to bulk up in the veg. But today we're making meatballs. So back into the same pan goes those gorgeous meatballs. And it does take a little bit more time, but gosh, you're going to get so many dinners out of this. And simply pour this on top. And this is why I love to blitz it. It just gives that gorgeous sauce. I'm going to bring this to a light simmer. Just gently kind of make sure that those meatballs are all covered in that gorgeous sauce. So tasty. And I'm going to get this on low for about 5 hours. The longer you can leave it on low, you can pour this directly into your slow cooker if that's what you're using. I'm putting it into my oven at about 140, low shelf. I'm going to cover this with parchment paper, tin foil and a lid. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But right now I want to get this just simmering, so I'll be back. A handy thing to do while you're waiting for things to simmer and cook is to clean up your mess. I always make a big mess, so yeah, top tip from Sarah, clean up your mess. So good. Okay, that's bubbling away. I am getting some parchment paper. And you don't have to do this, but this is like my little trick to keep things really tasty and it doesn't dry out. So a little rough square in on top. It doesn't have to be perfect. Followed by some tin foil. Again, leave some gaps. So this is going to allow the steam to escape, but keep the moisture in there. I'm also going to pop my lid on and just have it slightly off, so that it's not going to get watery, that sauce, by the condensation. If this is completely covered, the condensation can't go anywhere but back into that sauce, so you're going to have a watery sauce. So I'm going to leave that little gap there to let the steam out. That is it. Get it in your slow cooker. This is the most delicious recipe, a brilliant one for families. As I said, you can have it with mash, you can have it with pasta, you can freeze leftovers, you can slice what's left cold and have it in a sub with melted cheese. Definitely give it a go. I will show you what it's like in a couple of hours. I may not have the light in the kitchen and there may be little people running around, but it's always nice to see the finished effect. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this so far. It really doesn't take long. If you've got 20 minutes piece, you have this in the oven, and what I always say is make enough, get extra, make extra to freeze or whatever. So that's it. I'm going to go and do my day, and I will see you in about 5 hours, so I'll talk to you then. So here we are. That has been in the slow cooker for about 4 hours. I did add a little bit of water, about 100 ml, back on the heat just to bring that to a lovely simmer. And to finish it off, not essential, a little chopped basil on top. These are so delicious. That sauce is so tasty. As I said earlier, you can have this with mash, with chips, with wedges, with pasta, a good generous grating of parmesan on top, and you're good to go. So great to make ahead, and there is lots for leftovers. So I hope you have enjoyed this demo on gorgeous homemade meatballs in that lovely sauce. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. Give this video a like, and I'll be back with more lovely recipes real soon.